We see a flashback to the volunteer day with Seun and Baku getting to know each other better. Baku tells Seun that Hyuntak used to be a taekwondo champion, but because of him, he got seriously injured, which ended his career. Baku says that he feels responsible, and even though Hyuntak is okay now, he cannot help but feel guilty. Seun resonates with Baku's feelings because he feels guilty about what happened to Suho. In the present, Seun wakes up when police showed up on the rooftop. They managed to escape, and Baku carried an unconscious Seun and waited for him to wake up. Baku promises Seun that he will never let anything like that happen ever again. Seun tells him that fighting is not the answer, since it will only lead to a vicious cycle of violence that will end with someone getting seriously hurt. Baku resolves to end the grudge with Baekjin by admitting defeat. It turns out that Baekjin and Baku were childhood friends. Baku always stood up for Baekjin when he was getting bullied. Baekjin picks up Songjin from the hospital. He takes him to one of their hangout places, where he usually uses to discipline gang members who go against him. When Baekjin asks him about their burner account, Songjin realizes that Baekjin picked him up not because he was worried, but because he wanted to know what he told the police. Songjin gets angry. Even though he and Baekjin are not good people, he says that he thought they were in the union together. He says he is taking a few days off, and Baekjin should not try to look for him, and then leaves. The relationship between Seun, Hyuntak, Juntae, and Baku flourishes. They spend more time together at school studying, playing basketball, and at other times just hanging out. On one of those chill afternoons, Baku gets a call from the police station about his father's case. He is told that the boys who had said that his father sold alcohol to minors decided to change their testimony. They now say that his father did not check their IDs, which made him furious, so he beat up a minor at a police station. Baku's father is held in a police cell when Baku arrives at the police station. He overhears the boys laughing about the incident and follows them out of the station. In anger, Baku assailed them when Baekjin texted him, saying that he did not want Baku to give in. Instead, Baekjin will only leave his friends and his father alone when Baku agrees to join the union. Elsewhere, Seun arrives home to find his mother waiting for him. She knows that he has not been attending cram school and worries about the injuries on his face. Seun's mother gives him admission to a school abroad and tells him to get ready to leave. Seun refuses, saying that his mother should leave him alone like she did in the past. His mother breaks down. She says that she blames herself for what happened at his old school, and she cannot help but worry about her son. Seun starts to consider leaving. Meanwhile, Baekjin continues to push Baku to a corner, blackmailing him with his friends and his father's safety. Baku stops going to school and gets into an argument with his father about it. To protect his friends and family, Baku decides to join Baekjin. His first order is to make Seakim top dog, Gorilla, agree to join the union. Baku tracks him to a nightclub. With only one punch, Seakim High becomes part of the union. Hyuntak and Juntae Seun's address from the school. They show up at Seun's door the night before he is to leave to study abroad. They invite him out and spend one last time playing basketball together. Seun asks about Baku and learns that he has not been to school for a while. Seun worries about him, so he gives him a call. Baku tells him that he will ensure nothing will happen to him and hangs up the phone. Baku then arrives at the bowling alley, where Baekjin and other union members are all waiting to welcome him into the union. Juntae calls Seun when he is waiting to board his plane at the airport. Juntae tells him the words he has been yearning to hear for a long time. He tells Seun that what happened to Baku, Hyuntak, and even his friend Suho is not his fault. With those words, Seun decides not to leave. We see Seun telling Hyuntak and Juntae that they have to get Baku back. They know that Baku joined the union, and he did so because he felt guilty about what happened to them. Meanwhile, Baku continues to do Baekjin's bidding and forces another school to join their gang. Baekjin pays him for his work. Baku has no choice but to take the money because his father needs to pay a fine at the police station. Baku thinks back to how bad Baekjin became after he taught him how to fight when they were younger. Meanwhile, Seun and his friends show up at Baku's house. Baku's father talks down on Baku, saying that he is worthless, just like his mother, who never used to listen to him. Seun disagrees and says that Baku is a great person who cares about his friends. He gets along with everyone at school, so if his father thinks so lowly of him, then he must be the problem. Baku's father kicks them out of the house. The boys continue looking for Baku. The next person they choose to ask is Hyoman. He tells them more about the union. It turns out that Baekjin and the union gang work for CEO Choi. He is the gang leader who owns the bowling alley that Baekjin manages and a motorcycle company registered under Daesung Construction. The bowling alley is a front for money laundering. Baekjin formed the union to get high school boys to work under him. The bowling alley legally hires them part-time, paying them handsomely to do Choi's dirty work. The union gang steals motorcycles. The union gang rebuilds these motorcycles at Daesung Construction and sells them as brand new products on the black market. After a while, the union gang steals back the sold motorcycles, takes them to Daesung for new paint and number plates, and resells them on the black market. The motorcycle stealing business brings in a lot of money, which Baekjin launders through the bowling alley. The union boys stay at the gang not only for the money, but because CEO Choi keeps a register for all their crimes. Seun decides to confront Baekjin about Baku. He asks Hyuntak and Juntae to stay put and not plan anything before they hear from him. He goes to the bowling alley looking for Baekjin and has to wait until late. Meanwhile, Hyuntak and Juntae do not listen to Seun but go snooping around Daesung Construction. At the bowling alley, Baekjin comes back and finds Seun waiting. Seun tries to understand Baekjin's motivation for coming after Baku. Seun thinks that Baku is the only person who truly knows him, and that makes him scared, so he wants to have Baku by his side and control him. Seun also thinks that Baekjin considers Baku his only friend, but asks whether Baku feels the same. His questions seem to get at Baekjin for a moment before he composes himself. Baekjin shows Seun CCTV footage from Daesung Construction. When Hyuntak and Juntae fail to find Baku, they break into the documents room looking for the register of Baekjin's crimes. Baekjin had already sent union boys over to take care of them. Seun gets angry and picks the nearest weapons to attack Baekjin. Just then, Baku arrives and drags Seun out of the premises. Seun tells Baku about Hyuntak and Juntae's fate. Baku asks Seun to leave first. Earlier that day, Baekjin had sent Baku to steal a motorbike. However, he returns empty-handed. He tells Baekjin that he will no longer work for him. Baekjin can do whatever he wants to the people in Baku's life. Baku tells Baekjin that he will never be his friend again, and he should never try contacting him again. Baekjin tries to attack Baku. Baku punches Baekjin on the face before leaving the bowling alley. At Daesung Construction, Hyuntak and Juntae find a ledger of stolen motorcycles. However, the union gang shows up before they can leave. Hyuntak holds out in a fight with a bunch of union gang members, including Dongha and Sonmak. Juntae is also better in a violent situation, so he helps Hyuntak, and they manage to escape. Union gang chases after them. Seun gets a call from the hospital telling him that Suho is in a critical condition and the nurses cannot reach his guardian. He fails to check for cars when crossing the road, and a lorry speeds towards him as he stands motionless in the middle of the road. We see Union gang chasing after Hyuntak and Juntae. They hide under a lorry and think it is over, but Sonmak and Dongha find them. They try to fight back, but their opponents are more skilled. Luckily, Baku comes to their rescue. Baku easily subdues Sonmak and Dongha despite a brutal hit to the head by a guy on a motorcycle. In his anger, Baku strangles Dongha and almost kills him. Juntae gets a call about Seun's accident, and they rush to the hospital. Seun is with his mother in the ICU. They wait outside for updates. Seun's mother tells them that Seun is stable and asks them to stay away from his son. Although the union gang gets the ledger back, one page is missing. Baekjin sends them to get it back. Baku arrives home the next morning and finds his father preparing breakfast. He invites Baku to eat and tells him about his friend's visit. His father thinks that he has found some good friends and asks him to be good to them. Emotions of guilt overwhelm Baku, and he cannot help but start crying. Elsewhere, Juntae takes the piece of ledger to the police station, but soon realizes that the police will not investigate. He decides to leave and runs into more Union gang members outside the police station. They drag him to one of their many warehouses where they gang up on him, per Baekjean's order. Baekjean calls and asks to talk to Juntae. Baekjean tells Juntae that a simple piece of paper cannot bring them down, but Juntae responds by asking him why he is anxious. Baekjean tells Juntae to delete any pictures he might have of the page. He will only delete if Baekjean leaves his friends alone. Baekjean tells him that it does not matter because he will die at the warehouse. The Union gang continues to beat up Juntae, who still refuses to submit. Songji, who is sleeping in the inner room, wakes up due to the commotion. He admires Juntae's loyalty to Eunjang Hai and his friends, so he helps him. Songji easily subdues the Union guys and calls Baku and Hyuntak to pick him up. Songji asks Baku if he's the top dog at Eunjang Hai. In his eyes, it looks like Juntae might be the top dog, and so does Seun. Sungjae is both curious and fascinated by Eunjang's high school mates. CEO Choi shows up at the bowling alley early, following the ledger incident. He gets the Union gang members beaten up for disrespecting him. He reminds them that he is the leader and he can get rid of Baekjean anytime. The moment he gets back, it will imply the death of Baekjean. The following day, Baku shows up at Yeol High with a megaphone and openly challenges Baekjean to a fight. He asks Baekjean to pick a date, and if Eunjang Hai wins, Baekjean will have to shut down the Union. Baku calls Hyuntak and tells him to inform the school that Eunjang Hai will fight the Union. Eunjang's high school mates are both excited and scared. Later, Baku visits Seun at the hospital. He stands outside the door, apologizing for what happened and also for Baekjean. Seun's mother shows up and invites him in to see Seun. She tells him that the doctors say that Seun is okay. The accident was not severe, but his nervous system was affected. Therefore, Seun's body is just resting to help him recover. In his mind, Seun is stuck at the boxing ring with the past represented by Baek Seun, trying to hold him back. However, Seun makes a firm decision to wake up and get back to his new friends in Suho. He wakes up, and the first person he wants to see is Suho. Baku holds him back and tells him that Suho is okay. The nurses got hold of his grandmother, and Suho is in a stable condition. Seun visits Suho. He apologizes for arriving late. He also apologizes for forgetting what Suho taught him about appreciating friends and having a good time. He says that he wants to do for his new friends what Suho did for him. Seun then stops to talk to his friends who are waiting in the lobby. They try to divert the conversation, but Seun wants to know what they are doing about Baekjean. We see Baku, Juntae, and Hyuntak updating Seun, who is now discharged from the hospital, about the fight. Seun thinks that since they will be outnumbered, they should come up with an alternative plan to ensure their victory. The fight between Eunjang and the Union is crucial, and Eunjang cannot afford to lose. Seun thinks that they should try to even out their odds by dividing the Union members. They had earlier learned from Hyoman that the Union members do not follow Baekjean. Seun thinks that if money brought them together, then it can also divide them. Seun approaches Sung Jae for help. Sung Jae is the only other person in the Union that Baekjean trusted. Seun talks Sung Jae into sending him the details of their burner account. Using Hyoman as a whistleblower, they release the details of the account to Union members, showing them that Baekjean has been siphoning money from them secretly, to a total of over 79 million. The news spread across the Union members, and a good number decided to bail out and not show up for the fight. He and Baku make a second plan that if, during the fight, Baku is knocked out by Baekjean, Seun would step in and hold out as long as possible. For this plan to work, Baku had to ensure that he got back up again. Seun gets a text from Sungji, who tells him that they can take advantage of Baekjean's absence from the bowling alley to find more evidence. Seun agrees to meet up, and before the fight, he decides to meet up with Sungji. However, Sung Jae planned to lure Seun away from the fight and trap him at the bowling alley. However, Juntae offers to head to the bowling alley to get Seun and make sure he shows up at the battleground. With Juntae's help, Seun subdues the Union member tasked with keeping him locked up at the bowling alley. Juntae is injured in the process. He asks Seun to leave him and head to the fight and make sure that Eun-Jang-hai never has to live in fear of the Union again. A group of Eun-Jang-hai students, including Hyoman's group, decide to join in the fight. The Union members are more skilled than Eun-Jang-hai, but the students still manage to hold on and keep the members occupied. Hyun-tak gets his one-on-one with Dong-ha, who has been dominating him in all the fights they have had before. While Hyun-tak is skilled in Taekwondo, so he keeps getting beaten up and getting back up again until he wins in the end by knocking out Dong-ha. The next big fight is between Baek-jin and Baku. Interestingly, they're evenly matched, but at some point, Baek-jin wins over Baku and knocks him out. The fighting stops since the bet was about who would win between Baku and Baek-jin. It seems like the Union has won, and Baek-jin announces that henceforth, Eun-jang will be under the Union unless anyone else comes forward to fight him. Hyun-tak is about to come forward, but Seun arrives just in time. The fight between Seun and Baek-jin is less of a fight and more of Baek-jin beating Seun to a pulp. However, Seun is determined to leave severe damage, so he keeps attacking his left leg with a knuckle in his hands. Even though Baek-jin is injured and can't walk properly, he still takes down Seun. Just as Baek-jin announces his win, Seun says it's still not over. Finally, we see Baku get up and give a very heavy punch to Baek-jin, making him fall on the ground. He struggles to get back up due to damage dealt by Seun to his hands and legs. Baku stares at him and finishes the fight with a final blow. Baku announces that the Union will cease to exist henceforth. Eun-Jang-hai students cheer their victory and leave the battleground. Baek-jin is left sprawled on the ground, unable to get up. Eun-Jang-hai goes back to normality. Hyoman becomes the school president. Seun narrates that nobody knows what happened to Baek-jin, and his whereabouts are unknown. Seun wonders if Baek-jin will ever get the answer to the question he had gotten wrong. Seun starts spending more time with his friends. At the end of the episode, Seun receives a call, and they all rush to the hospital. As they reach hospital, we see Suho has woken up from his coma. He recognizes Seun immediately as Seun gets tears in his eyes. Suho asks who's behind him, and Seun responds as friends. Suho is happy to see that Seun has made friends and is happy. In the epilogue, Sung Jae visits the bowling club where he sees Mr. Choi Baek-jin's boss. He offers Sung Jae to replace Baek-jin. Sung Jae asks if he knows where Baek-jin is. Mr. Choi says he doesn't know either. We then see Baku, Hyun-tak, Juntae, and Seun crying as they give their condolences to Baku's friend Na Baek-jin.